Hey there, it's Martin here from Man of Yore. Thanks for joining me and I hope you're all well. So today I'm at Dunkelby Howe, as you can see behind me, and I thought that carrying on with our themes on the Neolithic and our prehistoric, we'd visit a few really cool barrow sites in the Wolds. Now, barrows are burial mounds, so they're places where people in the Neolithic buried their dead. This is quite an unusual one though, because it is actually a round barrow. And in the Neolithic, it was more common for you to have long barrows, which are big, long chambered tombs where you bury lots of different people in them all at the same time. This one behind me, when it was excavated by an archaeologist called Sir Mortimer Wheeler, he found that buried right at the bottom in a pit, right beneath the barrow, was a kind of a high status burial from the Neolithic. So it predated what they thought would actually be in it, with beautiful flint tools and sherds of pottery. However, it wasn't the only burial, because it seems that during that period more people got buried on top of him, with other beautiful goods like bladed scrapers and flint knives and things like that. However, the barrow didn't just get finished there. There were around sort of 54 cremations on top of that. And these 54 cremations came from around the Iron Age. So, carrying on into the Iron Age, people still see this site as an important place to be buried, and are actually inserting urns and cremations on the top. Perhaps they're even cremating themselves on top of the barrow itself. So it's a pretty good one. You've also, not only have you got it being used in the Iron Age and the Neolithic and the Bronze Age, but also they found evidence of perhaps like Anglo-Saxon pottery and Anglo-Saxon shears and things like that, which are normally associated with grave goods. Oh wow, it's an amazing bird over there. I'll see if I can try to film that in a moment if it comes back. So yeah, they found Anglo-Saxon stuff on the barrow as well, and so it suggests that Germanic peoples who are coming over, so whether it be the Frisians, the Angles, or the Saxons, or the Jutes, or the Geats, all these different people who are coming in just after Romans leave, they see these sites as interesting and important as well. So they're perhaps burying their dead on them. And I wanted the theme of this video to kind of be how people perceive the prehistoric, and not just us, as in us in the 21st century, but how all of us perceive the prehistoric. So people in the past, like people in the Middle Ages, people in the later antiquarian periods, and earlier on into the Anglo-Saxon period as well. So we're going to visit hopefully 3 key sites, this being one of them. That's Dunkelby. That's nearby. If you don't know where Dunkelby Howe is, it's west of Kirby Grindelfine. Okay, so surely you'll know where Kirby Grindelfine is. It's somewhere in Yorkshire. It's right in the sticks. Right, so we're going to head over to Rudston now. So see you in a bit. So I was just showing you a little bit of the Gypsy Race, which is a small winterbourne. And if none of you are familiar with the term winterbourne, it basically means a small stream that only really kind of appears around winter. But there's been a correlation made between all these prehistoric sites, like our barrow that we've just seen, and also the Rudston monolith, which is what we're going to see. And people think that perhaps all these kind of monuments relate to the mystical and life-giving waters of this small little stream up in the Wolds. So that's just to frame it for you, but let's head to the Rudston monolith. Right, let's get back in the car. In Rudston now, and just behind me you can see the Rudston monolith, which is a a gigantic standing stone, standing at 8 metres tall and 2 metres wide. It's one of the largest in England. It stands on a promontory on a big hill and right next to a church as well, in which it stands just a little bit over the gable of a church, so it's taller. A lead cap had to be put on in the 1800s so that lightning won't hit it. It's that kind of prominent in the landscape. The stone itself came quite a little far away, not that far in distance, but from a local quarry, and has actually got dinosaur footprints on it. So, or may have dinosaur footprints. So perhaps they thought it was interesting when they found this gigantic stone in the Neolithic. It dates to around 4,500 years old, so it's possibly one of the oldest monuments in the area. And Rudston itself is thought to be one of the oldest villages in all of England because of its high density of interesting prehistoric monuments and also settlement occupation. So for example, we've got Iron Age roundhouses nearby, we've got Roman villa, and then of course you've got this great Rudston monolith that dates all the way back to the Neolithic. Again, it is on the line of the Gypsy Race, which is the little winter-born stream that runs past all these monuments. It is possible that this is one of the most important parts of that kind of ritual landscape, because there seem to be curses that are leading to it from different directions. If you remember from my Thornborough Henge video, I mentioned that curses are normally kind of ditched parallel trackways and walkways that could go on for maybe 1 kilometre or even further than that, even 3 kilometres and things. And these curses all lead to this point, so perhaps it is the centre of some form of ritualised area. It was actually associated with some other stones which have since been lost, and so perhaps it was a larger standing stone monument or a henge site. And also, on our theme of the reuse of these kind of monuments and the different people's perception of them, look what's right next door, of course, I mentioned it before, is the church as well. And so this site has stayed sacred and ritualised throughout the medieval period, all the way since the Iron Age perhaps. And so this site must have been of interest to people in the Anglo-Saxon period and during the conversion period, and so has been set up as a ritual place again. And obviously when you look at the conversion into Christianity, and you have St. Augustine and St. Columba of the Celtic religion, and also of and then also later conversions, it is probably likely that churches replace areas that were deemed interesting in a religious way, and so they're trying to convert pagan areas and plant churches on top of them, so that they are sort of reusing significant sites in the landscape. So you'll find that Anglo-Saxons are interested in prehistoric monuments, and as you go into the early Middle Ages, you're getting churches replacing these interesting places as well, you see. So there we are. So that is the Rudston monolith, which is an amazing sarsen stone. We're now going to go to Willie's Howe, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll actually be able to go to it, because I think it might be on private land, but if not, we might be able to take some pictures of it, okay? Right, I'll see you in a bit. So just behind me on the hill is Willie Howe, which is a really unusual monument, which I was hoping to just have a sit on actually, and that was going to be the end of the video. We just sat on it, maybe having a cup of tea or something, but unfortunately it looks like it's on private land and in the middle of like a rapeseed field, and next to a little club for remote control aeroplanes, which apparently it says that you're not allowed to come up this road unless you're part of the flying club. So I'm beating a retreat. I'll show you some footage of it. I might try to find a place to stop at Wall Newton, but I was another Neolithic tumuli. So it's very windy here anyway, so we'll have a chat over there. Right, see you in a bit. So no luck with that one. This looks like it's definitely a private field, so I should probably get out. I just came in for a quick nosy. So basically, that's Wold Newton, which is another burial mound nearby, which is also a gypsy stream. And what's interesting about that one is that it's like I'm looking behind me because there's these horses. I was wondering if someone was with them. Basically what's interesting about it is that it possibly was used for exhumations, which is when you're actually lay down bodies on top of a mound for them to be sort of just picked away by carrion birds and also yeah, that's one way to do it. Picked away by carrion birds and also just rotted away by the elements, and then their bones will just get scattered along the hill. So that's one idea behind that. So and that's another one along the stream as part of this ritual landscape. So have a look at that, it's really clear. So unfortunately, as we kind of found out, is that most of these tumuli, round barrows, are all on farming land, unfortunately. And they've done all kinds of little methods to try to stop us getting in as well. Like, for example, that one was like protected by a moat of literally a moat of just like manure and cess, basically. So there was no way I'm going to get in unless I sank by death. So anyway, we'll try to find a nice place to sit and then we'll have a chat. See you in a sec. Hey there, so we're back and I've managed to find a peaceful place to have a chat, and I've chosen this lovely church. It's 11th century, it's called All Saints Church in Wold Newton, so the same place where we just visited that round barrow just now. So we've been to quite a few interesting sites so far. We've been to Duggleby, which is a round barrow. We've got Rudston Monolith, which is a great standing stone, which is associated with other cool Neolithic features like curses and things. We've got Willie Howe, and we've got Wold Newton tumulus as well. And these are all a set of monuments that are all associated with the Gypsy Race, which is that little stream, a Winterbourne, which runs through all these places. And it is possible that there's some form of overriding religious value to that. We know that in the area the Romano-British worshipped a god called Brig, and it is possible that this kind of god was associated with the waters and that people were laying down offerings, and that all these monuments are part of pilgrimage routes that people were using all the way up into the Iron Age. Now, as we noted on Duggleby Howe, there was Anglo-Saxon interference after the burials. And you have to think to yourselves that the Anglo-Saxons, their culture initially wasn't that different from the Iron Age people who came before the Romans. So they also have a culture of building barrows and round barrows. So when they come to England, they're possibly recognising these structures and thinking that they are similar to their own culture, and they start to overlay them with their own practices and possibly honouring them. And it is possible that these kind of areas are commemorative in their own culture, were big community burial sites, and so the Anglo-Saxons see these big burial mounds as places that they should bury their own dead, perhaps their high status dead, to be part of that landscape and to be part of a new land that they're now colonising, building villages like Wold Newton in things. So you're getting round barrows being honoured, and then you're getting prehistoric monuments which are trying to be replaced later on. So in the Middle Ages you're getting churches built in sites like this. So for example the Rudston monolith, which is the best example, has a church slapped right through into what used to may have been a stone circle, and then they've possibly broken up some of the other stones, but then they've left that gigantic stone standing, possibly because it was too much effort to take down. But it is possible that, just like Brigg, who was replaced with St. Bridget, they're trying to replace these religious sites with Christian worship sites, so people can still associate their own sacred sites with Christianity, and then make the conversion easier. I think this topic was mentioned by Quaker Piper as well, so check out his video on May Day. I think he'd probably find the Rudston monolith quite amazing. Now, another thing, talking about people in the community, Dunholm Piper wanted me to talk more about folklore. If you guys haven't subscribed to Dunholm Piper, I'll put a link down in the trough at the bottom, because he's really interesting. He's into his ancient music, so occasionally puts a video up about ancient music. He's from Durham. Dunholm is the old English name for Durham in northern England. So Willie Howe, which was the site that was covered in rape fields and things and was private, so we couldn't go into it. That was quite an interesting site, because that, when it was excavated, there were no burials found in it. So it was literally just a mound being built. It may have had other things in it, but maybe they were robbed, as stories may have suggested. So that one was perhaps a cenotaph, and maybe a monument built later on, perhaps maybe in the Iron Age, for people to commemorate something of some kind, a little bit like the henges, so we're not so sure what that's used for, but it is still in association with the Gypsy race. And basically, an antiquarian has basically dug a huge dugout from it, so he basically dug straight into the middle. And you have to imagine that antiquarians at the time weren't very interested in finding out more about the past, but were more interested in kind of like treasure hunting, really. So anyway, this Willie Howe has got a fantastic story associated with it, by William and Newburgh. So William and Newburgh rather, who comes from Bridlington, so not far from here, he wrote that apparently a rustic, as he describes him, was walking through the village, and this rustic stayed out late at night for his love of beer, and ended up stumbling in his drunken state to Willie Howe. Now, he saw that it was all lit up, and there were glowing lights coming from the burial mound, and so he peered in to an opening where he saw all these tiny little people all feasting and drinking, possibly fairies. Now, these fairies are all drinking and things, and he sort of leans in and hopes to join in, and they offer him a beautiful glass goblet. He takes it, but he knows there's fairies apparently, and he knows that if he takes a glass chalice from these little folk, then he will be transported into their world forever, which is an invisible realm in our world, but in a kind of invisible elvish realm, if you know what I mean. And so what he does is he just legs it, and he takes the cup with him, which is of extraordinary value. And eventually he manages to, I think he must sell it, and it goes through various people's hands. It ends up in the hands of Henry I, so King Henry I, and eventually to William the Lion of Scotland. And so, yeah, so he basically tricked those fairies good. Another story is when a man goes to try to loot the actual barrow itself. And as he's trying to dig through the barrow to try to find any possible treasure that's in it, because obviously you can sometimes get gold and bronze like ornaments from the old burials, he digs down, and suddenly he finds a big iron box, and this iron box lifts itself up out of the hole, and there appears a gigantic black cat with eyes as big as saucers, which is a common theme for familiar spirits that guard burial mounds and things like that. And because this cat is so heavy, he can't lift it up, and so he gives up, and he comes back the next day with loads of cat and ox and things like that. And if I just look, and so basically he got all his cattle and horses, and he shouts out to his animals, "Help Joan, Crow Mark, whether God will or no, we'll have this ark," and he tries to get his cattle and horses to pull this great chest out. But apparently the rope splits into 100 pieces, sending his animals flying, and then the chest sucks itself back into the burial mound, never to be seen again. So it's got some really good folklore, and I hope you'll enjoy those ones, Dunholm Piper. And so obviously the perception of burial mounds changes up into medieval times, of more of magic and mysticism, and kind of fear as well, about what creatures and superstitious beings actually haunt these places. And with the little folk in particular, you'll get all kinds of mounds associated with fairies and elves, and you'll see parallel legends in Iceland, and perhaps these kind of elvish stories come from Old Norse and Viking origins, perhaps, as this area was greatly inhabited by people like that. It's possible that they're remembering old legends and stories and then retelling them with a moral air to them as well, you see. And so yeah, you'll get these really fun, crazy stories about them. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope these crows haven't been too noisy on this take. I'll show you an image of the actual doorway to the church itself. This beautiful 11th century church has a doorway where it represents a cartwheel, which is representing eternal life, and then you've got two other cartwheels on either side which are representing the Father and the Son, which is a really kind of unique thing to find in this area of the country. You won't find that many kind of old Norman carvings like that, so very cool. Also in this village they've got big archery butts as well, which date back to the medieval period. And so on Sunday it was by law you had to practice the longbow in all your villages, which is what made all our normal kind of peasantry so proficient at fighting in the 100 Years' War and things. But here in Low Newton there's the only example of actual ditches that they've risen up to try to protect the houses and gardens from arrow fire coming over the village green, and so it's just kind of soak up arrow fire to shield off the rest of the village so that you can all practice your longbow on the green basically, which is quite good. So loads of stuff to see around here. So anyway, if you ever are driving up around the Wolds, do have a look at Rudston Church, because that's quite accessible to see the old standing stone there, so it's very impressive. If you want, you can go and hunt out some of the more obscure ones like I have. I know I was a little bit unsuccessful today, but hopefully I'll be able to relive my dream, live out my dream of smoking atop an old ancient round barrow at some point. So yeah, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been enjoying all your videos, and have a great weekend and also a great week, and see you around. Have a nice time. See ya. So one last thing before I go. We've talked quite a lot about possible ritual in the landscape and prehistory. We haven't talked much about practical lifestyle. One thing that Portland Piper might like is my new video coming next weekend, which will be all about flint tools and how to make them, which will be my first time doing flint knapping, so don't take it as a tutorial. I was down in Suffolk basically, and I picked up loads of flint nodules as well as a few good pebbles that can be used as hammerstones. I've already got a good antler piece to do finer work on and for a soft hammer and things. And so next weekend we're going to try out some flint knapping. So do tune in for that, and I hope you enjoy it. So again, have a good weekend and see you around.